All right, everyone, your eyes are not deceiving you. We are back. The Lord Cephas, the Earl of Florida. We are back with Midnight Magic Musings, episode number 40. Earl, how you doing, man?
I am enjoying life. It's been a busy summer, but that's to be expected. How has your summer been, sir?
Well, I'm in a different home. I moved and changed cities, hence the blurred background. We're still getting things together. There's a lot going on. I've got a dog here on my hip. This is Fritz, everybody. He just is dying to say hi. Well, hi, Fritz. Thank you for making your Midnight Magic Musings debut here in episode number 40. But you didn't come to see Fritz, although it might be more entertaining, but we're going to set that aside because tonight it is our triumphant return. But we're going to talk something kind of special, near and dear to our hearts. We don't talk overtly about our faith, about our Christianity, but we're both believers. And so tonight we wanted to take a little bit of time to share some of our favorite faith-based movies, dare I say, our favorite Christian movies, if you will, or series, our top 5 series or movies. And Earl, you're in the honor of starting first. So would you do us a big favor and tell us what is your first movie or series? What is your number 5?
Well, amusingly, this traditionally isn't considered overly much a Christian movie. It's a Walk to Remember. 2022, it was a coming of age movie that was based on a book by Nicholas Sparks. So it is a
Okay.
romantic movie. Yes, the Earl went with romance for number 5. Now, the reason I chose this movie as number 5 is because it's a Christian theme. So you have a young woman who is a Christian, and then you have the
Mhm.
bad boy, played by Shane West and Mandy Moore, respectively. Not the bad boy, switch them around. But that'd be a 2024 version, actually, is what we would. But anyway,
Gotcha.
we have the pastor's daughter, who's a good girl, and then the bad boy played by Shane West, and you get to see he likes her. He's interested in her, so he pursues her interest, and starts learning more. Morality and you know, becoming a Christian. And there's Nicholas Sparks loves to, you know, make people cry. I don't cry, but you know,
Mhm.
I have a friend
Oh, of
that
course.
actually watched this movie and cried a river. He lost his man card that night. But anyway, um, so the budget was 11.8 million, and the box office was 47.5 million. So it was a success. It did make money, but for me, it was a nice, wholesome film uh, with that little romance part thrown in. But I have to put that up there as my number 5 because uh, the ending's a tearjerker, but it also it kind of solves the heartstrings a bit with the ending. So that's my number 5.
Well, I think that was very sweet of you to start.
Well, I mean, it wasn't originally intended to be my number 5. There were other movies that were a close one. Most recently, you had Unsung Hero, which was by King Country. I really enjoyed that movie. It was a lot of fun, and I actually watched it twice. Once with the youth group and once on my own. But Unsung Hero almost knocked out A Walk to Remember for number 5. But A Walk to Remember, you're talking 22 years ago, and it came from my past, and it was also at that time, young, so I could identify with them. Unsung Hero, I identified with the father and the mother, and with the daily life issues that come along. So Unsung Hero almost knocked it off, but I have to stick to my guns with A Walk to Remember.
Well, you started off very sweet, very kind, very loving, very emotional. I have to go the other way for my number 5. That's right, my number 5. I'm going to kick it old school. For those of you that may have grown up in church in the early 80s, the mid 80s, even the 90s, that's right, my number 5, A Thief in the Night. Now, for those of you familiar with this particular a series of 4 movies that depicted the end of time. It was really the first series of movies that talked about the rapture of the church, the tribulation. Yes, there were 4 of them. A Thief in the Night was the very first one. The second one being A Distant Thunder. And now I'm going to flame out on what the other 2 were.
Image of the Beast, and I don't remember
Yeah,
what
and
the
there was
last
a
one.
4th one. So A Thief in the Night comes out in 1972. Now, to be fair, the motif looks 1972. The mutton chop sideburns look 1972. Epic, still though they are to this day. But it was basically a movie setting up the return of Christ and the events that would take place following the return of Christ, the introduction of an antichrist, a one world government, and what would be, according to the book of Revelation, would be the hours of testing, the days and years of testing would come upon the earth during the Great Tribulation, where people would be martyred for their faith during that time. So it was a strong movie for the day. Now, as it's progressed over time, it's on the nose in some things, but I will always hold it very near and dear to me. Scared the devil out of me as a child because of the subject matter and how it played out. Because look, when you're a kid, you don't know nothing. But still, as a grown adult, I have to look back at this and say this has got to be one of my top faith-based Christian movies that I've ever watched or experienced in my life. So I know you've seen it. Do you have anything to add to that?
I actually, I'm right there with you, Dorsey, because I really loved these series when I was younger. Um, One of my favorite moments in the series back then, because I just thought it was just hilarious, was at the end of the second movie and the beginning of the third movie. So at the end of the second movie,
You're not really going
the
to do this.
main
You're not really going to do this.
oh yes, spoiler yes. Well, the thing is, I was like, that's ridiculous, bad timing. But as an adult now, looking back on it, I'm like, it's kind of terrifying in the moment. What happens? A spoiler, is she's getting ready to be executed in the second one, and in the third one, an earthquake happens and whatnot, and everybody runs off, and she's still strapped down the guillotine, and she goes,
Right.
I'll take the mark," and unfortunately, the earthquake, as earthquakes tend to do, shook things up a bit, and a certain something didn't stay up where it was supposed to, and ended that particular character's story arc quite efficiently.
Yes, the
So I mean
wax
now,
that was holding the guillotine shook loose. Yeah.
but I mean back then I thought it was funny. It was just ridiculous to me. But now as an adult, having lived, and experienced life, it's like how how apt is that you can endure everything she endured in the first movie. The majority of it was grand. The second one, which was, but I mean, you endure all this stuff and get to the very end, and at the very end,
Right.
you give up. Something happens that makes you go, no, I can't do it, and you don't get a chance to rectify that. So now
And as a
that
child,
ending,
except for you being a sick man who thought that was funny, for the rest of us normal wired folk, we didn't. We took that as being a wee bit on the terrifying side. All right.
well,
Well,
now
I'm not going to take a beat. Go ahead.
I'm like,
What's that?
I'm a paragon of virtue, sir. I don't know what you're talking about.
I know. Yeah. Yes, we've heard it, Earl. We've heard it. All right. Moving on to number 4, Earl. This is number 4. Go ahead, audience. What's number 4?
Okay, again, it's an older one. This takes place in the late '90s when the animation style was really, really hitting a stride. And this was through DreamWorks. And, well, it's called The Prince of Egypt. If you've not seen it, yes, it's a cartoon. Yes, it's animated, but it is very good. It's a lot of fun. It's clean. And the animation style still holds up 26 years later. It still holds up. And so it introduces kids. It had the opportunity to introduce the story of Moses, the book of Exodus, to a whole generation of kids that would never have had the opportunity to really learn the story of Moses and everything that happened in his first 80 years. I guess we could go there. But I'm like, it's very compelling. And there's a song in there, "Deliver us, So it was a great song. It, when I started looking up the list, that song got stuck in my head before I was like, yeah, the Prince of Egypt. So the Prince of Egypt for me was good. You also had a nice cast. Val Kilmer was Moses, and me and Lord Cephas were arguing earlier. Yes, it was. Danny Glover is Jethro.
True,
Yeah.
that's right. We looked it up. We verified.
And then Jeff Goldblum was there, and which it fits a bit. But budget was 60 million. The box office was $218 million for a cartoon based on a Bible story. That is amazing, and the movie holds up. If you've never seen it, check it out. It's a lot of good. It's a lot of good things involved in it, and it's so well that actually our church is going to be showing it this upcoming Saturday for the community. So it it's a great movie, and it's also a nice tool to be able to spread the gospel.
Well, I will be honest with you, Earl. I never watched The Prince of Egypt all the way through. Dude,
Deliver
when it came
us.
out, I was 20 something years old. It just different age, right? So I'm a
Nah.
couple years older than you are. So, us old folk, we weren't watching that particular cartoon. I see the gray. I got rid of mine, so it couldn't be noticeable on camera.
Nah.
All right, let's go ahead and give my number four. My number four is a fairly recent one compared to the ones we've looked at earlier. And that is I Can Only Imagine is my number four. I Can Only Imagine, a 2018 smash hit based on the song by Mercy Me. I Can Only Imagine. Now, this movie was filmed on a budget of $7 million and grossed at the box office $86 million. Now, normally on our show, when we talk box office, we say, you want a 2x multiplier, 3 times what it cost you. Oh, they did way better than that one. One of the biggest hits, I would say, of the faith-based or Christian-based sector you'll ever come across. I enjoy the song very much. We played it at our wedding when Lady Cephas and I got married, and I thought the movie was good. I really enjoyed Dennis Quaid being in the movie. I thought it was a good story. A little on the nose, but then again, a lot of these Christian dramas they try very hard to represent the Lord, and sometimes maybe a little more than necessary. I don't know. That's to each person their own taste. But I enjoyed the movie. Lady Cephas and I watched it for date night and enjoyed it. So I would say my number four, I Can Only Imagine. Earl, how do you feel about it?
I like the song. Obviously, we're familiar with the song. I've never seen this movie.
I can't
I've
even imagine.
never seen the movie.
Wow.
The best part is my kids have watched it multiple times. They like it a lot. I like Dennis Quaid, and I just never sat down and watched this movie. Maybe it's just an age thing. Dennis Quaid's older, so you identified a lot with him. So I don't
guess
know.
if I say
You
anything
didn't
about
watch
Amy
the
Grant being in the movie, I'll probably have to hear about that too. So that's fine. I'm not gonna, give you any more.
You didn't watch the Prince of Egypt, so I'm not watching. I Can Only Imagine. Okay.
Dude, that was 26 years ago when The Prince of Egypt came out. Give me a break, okay? 26 years is a long time.
When did I Can Only Imagine come out?
2018.
That was a long time ago, sir.
It was 6
That
years.
was that was a different decade.
I see. Even when we're talking about our Christian stuff, we're never going to agree. All right. Moving on to number three, Earl. What is your number three television series or movie?
Well, we went TV show this time, so I went with The Chosen. Number three is The Chosen. Now, I understand there are a lot of people that absolutely love this series, and I understand why. And there are a lot of people who absolutely hate this series, and I intellectually understand why. So, this series is planned to go, I think it's, right now they're planning 6 or 7 seasons of The Chosen, and the big problem is with when you're doing this is you have to take some liberty with filling in the gaps, filling in some of the story, building the characters, because sometimes there just wasn't a lot given, and you're also trying to fill an 8-episode season with what 6 months, 7 months of what's given time frame wise in the Bible, because they only have 3.5 years for the ministry, even though the chosen starts just before his ministry begins. But you're trying to fill it in, and you're also trying to tell the story, and you're also trying to humanize some of the people that we didn't really get great huge sections. I mean, everybody goes, okay, well, who was your favorite disciple? John, Peter, James. Uh, after that, it peters off. See what I did there? Peter. Okay, but so either way, they're filling in, they're humanizing and giving a story background for like Thomas or Simon the Zealot or all these others that you didn't really get to see a lot of who these people were. So they do take some liberties
Hmm.
of trying to bring their stories to life. And for a lot of people, the chosen it's like reading the Bible except a lot of people get things by watching things these days. I do as well. I'm just as guilty. YouTube. When you have a moment, you flip it open. You're surfing through YouTube, or you're on TikTok, or you're on Facebook, flipping through. Back in the day, when you went in, when you had a moment, you cracked open a book, or you had your, choose your adventure series, or a comic book or something. So the medium has
Right.
shifted from when I was a kid, and Lord Cephas was, an advanced adult. From it has shifted from a written medium to this is a tool to get the gospel out there, but it's also a way of expanding and allows them to tell more stories. In these instances, more stories, but they give
Right.
some humor and some weight. And uh, so for me, I do like The Chosen. That's why it's not my number three because it's very. There are moments that grab you and you want to cry. There are moments that make you want to laugh. Like there's this one scene, I think it's in season three, the disciples and Jesus were about to stay at somebody's house, and the guy who's owning the house, he's like, "Oh, come in." He goes, "I don't care. I'm about to die anyway." He goes, "Y'all can stay in this room, this room." He goes, "Nana's old room, she died in there, so it's haunted." And Jesus goes, "Ooh, I'll take that one." It's just a sense of humor, and I think it also brings some grounding to the fact that Jesus was a man, and we think of Jesus as which he is, but it's also more than that he came to earth to be a man and experience everything that we experience and all the temptations and so this fleshes that out a little bit more. You get to see more interaction with him and his family and friends, and you know what, I really enjoy it, and I recommend anybody to give it a shot. And I know Lord Cephas, he's going to forgive me for not watching some of his stuff because he's seen The Chosen. I'm sure he's a big fan of it. So, what do you think, Lord Cephas? How do you what do you think of The Chosen so far?
So I've only watched a little bit of the series. I've seen a little bit there. Um, what I've liked has been okay, but it hasn't really grabbed me as watching it episode after episode after episode. So if you like it, I'm happy with it. If people are being drawn to read their Bible more, that's great. Do I understand that they use things in there that are not in the Bible? I do, and I understand the controversy that comes with that. That's for a different show, for a different channel. We're not going to do that here on Midnight Magic Musings, but I do understand it is controversial. But it will not be the only controversial show that will still appear on our list because I have a number three that has a little bit of controversy attached to it, and that is the 2016 release Miracles from Heaven, starring Jennifer Garner. Now, we talk about, movies wanting to do well. That's how you make more of them. Miracles from Heaven was released in 2016 on a $14 million budget and cleared at the box office $74 million. So I would say that was pretty good. The general idea of the story, without giving the whole thing away, is a young girl wakes up with pain in her abdomen. They take her to the hospital. They find out that she's got issues. Um, they find out she's basically got a chronic illness, but she's not getting any better. Um, Spoiler: she basically falls,
Or
has a
death?
minor concussion, but that's about it. But
Oh,
come to find out, she is no longer ill from the disease that she had. So it completely goes away. So it's just a feel good movie based on what I'm told, what I read was a true story. So it was good. It had some definitely faith elements in it, including in the church scene. They actually had Third Day, Mac Powell from Third Day, leading the worship, Church on Fire. So that was cool. But again, I took Lady Cephas to see it. We had a date night and saw it, and very much enjoyed the movie. Earl, I'm gonna guess you didn't see this one though.
Well, sir, you would be absolutely correct. I
Ah,
did not see this.
that's what I thought.
I missed it. I'm a fan of Jennifer Garner, but I did not see it. I I I had the opportunity to, and I apparently I did not choose wisely.
Apparently, you did not. Yes, perhaps we should have done Indiana Jones and Last Crusade. Maybe you would have said you saw that one.
I mean, technically there are Christian elements in that, so that could be my number two for all you know.
Well, I've seen your list. That's how I know what number two is. I know that's not it, but it could have been. It could
Could have
have
been,
been.
or the Ark of the
Oh,
Covenant.
that's true.
Raiders of Lost
I wish you Godspeed on your quest. All right, so let's give the Earl his number two. And Earl, I think you're going to kick it extremely old school with this selection, right?
Well, I mean, for so many of us of our generation and older, when you think of the epitome, the pinnacle of Christian films, it's got to be the 1956 version of the Ten Commandments, starring Charlton Heston of Planet of the Apes, and Yul Brynner. Yes. Now this
As it
movie,
has been written, so shall it be. Go ahead.
this
I
movie
can
was it had some length to it, 220-minute runtime. So this will tell people of a certain generation how long this movie was. You had two VHS tapes to watch it. Two VHS. Now the budget was 13 million. You have to think though, this was over 50 years ago. 13 million is an Avenger movie, pretty much. Okay, but it raked in 122.7 million dollars on its first release. So that literally like an Avenger movie back in the day, and it was great. It was everything that I love growing up. So it was the King Commandments, you had Charlton Heston, you had the showdown. I mean, did it age well? Probably not the greatest aging, but I mean, I still watch the Clash of the Titans, the original. So
right.
it's better than that. But you know what? For the longest time, for probably 40 or 50 years, the Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston was the leading Christian movie out there, in my opinion. And I still watch it from time to time when I have 2 days to spend.
Well, now remember, this is going to show how old we are. ABC used to air it every Easter.
Yep.
By the way, if you want to know what $10 million was back in 1956, if you don't want to know what the buying power is today, that would be $117 billion. So when you said that thing cleared 121 million, that would be somewhere in the range of $300 billion today.
Yeah. Like I said, Avenger, class monstrosity is what it was.
It's impossible to imagine.
Yeah.
How big a hit this was. And this was an epic movie. We use that term all the time, but it really was a sweeping epic of a movie that Cecil B. DeMille put together. And, for a long time, that was the only representation of a Bible story.
Or even, the variant of his Ben-Hur back in the day where he was
True. No, that's fair.
Which was not specifically, it's kind of like a Walk to Remember, not specifically a Christian story, but it had the element in there and story, the redemption cycle in it. But, so that was my number two, the Ten Commandments. I love it. And,
every Sunday night of Easter, 7:00, ABC.
And,
I remember
until 5:00 the next day.
I mean, with commercial breaks, we could knock it down to a 3-hour epic. All right. Now, just imagine if it were on today. It'd be like a 7-hour movie.
Oh
There'd
Lord,
be like
yeah.
6 minutes of movie, 12 minutes of commercials now. All right, my number two. I actually took a page from the Earl and I went to TV series for my number two. Earl, you're gonna like this. My number two, Duck Dynasty. Oh my goodness. From 2012 to 2017, they counted as 11 seasons of the show. But if you didn't watch it, you missed the craze the first time around. You can find it. It's streaming free on Tubi if you want to check it out. It's about a Louisiana family who were extremely rich because they hit it big with duck calls, but it also showed an exaggerated form of their lives, but also featured quite heavily their faith with prayers and references to the Lord. Um, Actually, Lady Cephas and I took the babies out there on 1 year on a trip to Texas and stopped at their place, only to find out it really does look like it does on TV. It was not the nice building that they have now. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed hearing people talk about God. Was it slapstick? Sure, it was. But in the mix of all that, there were some actual things being said that actually were very positive to people of faith. They did pray at the end of every episode. At the very least, that's something you didn't see on, forget network TV, even cable TV
Yeah.
at the time. And there is one episode that I'm particularly fond of. It's one towards the very end of the series where Uncle Si, because if you don't know Uncle Si stories are 95% truthful. In fact, I used to have the shirt that said that. Um, he is honored at their local war memorial there in the town, which would be Monroe, Louisiana, home of Louisiana Monroe. And he gets up and says a prayer, and probably one of the best prayers I've ever heard prayed ever, talking about how we've done a very poor job taking care of the people that come home from war and the things they've seen and dealt with. And so, is it entertainment, slapstick? Was it put on? A lot of it. But they knew how to entertain. They knew what their audience wanted, and they gave it to them. And so they still have a podcast now. They have their Unashamed podcast that you can find on YouTube in the Duck Room. But yeah, I would say my number two is Duck Dynasty. We watched it all the way till the very end. So very, very happy memories with that. A lot of entertainment. Earl, do I even want to ask? Did you ever
Well,
watch Duck Dynasty?
never. I have not seen a single episode of Duck Dynasty. I've I've heard about it. I've seen the little duck thing, but no. My
I mean,
mother watched it. My mother watched it and liked it, but
that's true because your mother's a good woman.
she also liked Elmira from Vanamania. And well, I hug you and squeeze you and love you to pieces. There's a reason those animals try to get away from her to live.
Listen, I
So,
like Elmira too, but I did not like her as part of Pinky
Pinky,
Elmira in the Brain. I didn't
yeah,
enjoy that.
no.
That was a bit too much for me.
So, but I'm like her likes and dislikes are they're a little skewed in my opinion. So I mean, Duck Dynasty that doesn't go in his favor. But you know, I again, people love. I mean, there are people that go crazy over Duck Dynasty. I mean, they got T-shirts, they got the bumper stickers. You know, they have the big thermoses that have some Duck Dynasty thing on there, or a picture of a dude with a beard, and I'm like, is that Uncle? Is that Jesse from Toy Story? No, it's blah 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 from Duck Dynasty. I'm like, oh, you're one of those people.
Wow.
But you know what?
Do you even
It's
crack
kind
your
of
Bible open? I mean, at this point, do you even crack your Bible open? What's wrong with
yes, I do. My fan was not tall enough to hit me full. So when I put it under there, it was too high, so I had to open it.
you? Wow. Fritz, the little puppy dog. What's going on? He doesn't need to know the dribble that's coming forth from your lips. All right. Well, to save us from further embarrassment or potential judgment, let's go ahead and flip to your number one. Now, I'm not going to click it up on the screen. I'm going to let you tee it up, and then I'll pop it up on the screen. Earl, what is your number one movie or series, Christian/faith based?
All right, so this movie was made back in 2002. Again, it's an older one. It was made for a measly $9 million, and during its box office run, it smashed out of the park $1.4 million. Now, despite that, This film, starring Tony Goldwyn and F. Murray Abraham, was based on a book series written, and the title of it is Joshua.
Okay.
Okay, I read the book years before there was a movie, and uh, I enjoyed them. The whole premise of the movie and the first book, obviously, is what would happen if Jesus was to come to a city today and lived among us, you know, talked with us, tried to guide us, tried to heal us of not just our not specifically our physical infirmities, but our lifestyle,
Right.
our anger, our hate, all these different things, just by living and working and being a friend to the people. And so that's what this story is. Is Jesus comes down and he touches people's lives under the guise of Joshua, and slowly one of the Catholic priests there uh, starts to go, oh, he's trying to form a cult, he's trying to do this, trying to do that, because then this is one of the lines from the movie. Uh, he asked the Bible, what is this to you? And holding up the Bible.
Mhm.
And I don't remember what the guy said, but he goes, no, this is a love letter to God's people. And so, I mean, the movie, I really enjoy it. I actually watch it probably a couple times a year. One of my children will watch this movie every single month. She will find it, whether it's on Tubi or YouTube movies or Crackle or somewhere. She will find it and she will watch it literally once a month because it speaks to her. And this movie came out in 2002, so you're talking a 22-year-old movie that was not made on a massive budget. But for me, it was kind of like get back to the basics. What's the point of all this? It's because God loves you, and you can change a city by how you treat one person, how you treat two people, what you're willing to do, to help. And it's not about massive miracles and pillars of fire and whatever. It's about a relationship. And so I think that's where Joshua succeeded. Not obviously on the box office, but but with me, it's where it succeeded because it's like it's supposed to be a relationship. It's supposed to be personal, and so that's the reason I love this movie. I know you haven't seen it because most people haven't seen this movie or heard of it, but I'm assuming you haven't. But for me, I thoroughly enjoy the movie. I watch it several times a year, usually with my daughter because he pulls it and says, "You know, watch it with me." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll watch it," and it's rewatchable. It's not one of those where you're like, "I want to bang my head against the wall because this is on again." So, what about you? Have you ever seen the movie Constantine?
I have not, but you've told me a great deal about it previously, so I feel like I've seen some of it by
Yeah,
our discussions that we've had. That's a good choice. I like that. It seems like it's had a profound impact on not only you but also your kids as well. My last choice is one that had a profound impact on a lot of people, Hollywood included. Now, I thought about what could be my number one movie. Could it be the original Left Behind series? I thought about it.
yeah.
I thought about, oh, I don't know, could it be the God's Not Dead series, which is coming out with another one here
Kevin
recently?
Sorbo.
Kevin Sorbo. Love Kevin Sorbo in these movies.
Love it.
Um, could it be Revelation Road? Kind of an under the radar apocalyptic series that I don't know a lot of people saw. But
Oh
a
no,
lot
no,
of
that's the Perdition Road. I was thinking Tom Hanks. I was like, wasn't that a gangster movie?
yeah, exactly.
No,
A
no,
lot
this
of different
movie.
a lot of different choices and things that I think we could have looked at and said, "Hey, I enjoyed that a lot." But I think there's really one for me that stands out as the best example of a faith based or Christian based movie, and that's got to be without question the Passion of the Christ. Now I know what I'm about to do. I am opening a can of worms. Theologically, there are things in there that I have friends who I love who will disagree with some of the representations. They interpret certain things a different way. I understand that. We're not going to argue theology, not this show. That's not what we do here. But I will say, from a theatrical point of view, probably the best representation of the last week of Christ's life that's ever been on film. Now, the film originally was shot with a $30 million budget, and it depends really upon who you listen to as to what the marketing budget was. It's been estimated somewhere around 15 million. So let's just give that full number and say, okay, 30 and 15, $45 million is what was spent on this movie. It made $612 million worldwide. Half of that was in the United States and Canada. So it played all over the world. Now, some areas did not play it for obvious geopolitical and religious reasons. We get that. But that movie, though it was controversial, though there were theological questions and people concerned about the director, Mel Gibson, and his prior whatevers, we're going to set that aside for a minute. From a presentation standpoint, it was the cleanest, and I'm going to say slickest, but I don't mean that the way that normally sounds. It was the best filmed representation, I would say, of that particular period. Now, this is just my opinion. We are certainly open, and we want to hear other people's opinions. But for me, and by the way, I walked out crying because it's a difficult film to watch. It's very much torturous in some areas, but that is the story of the death of Christ. So for me, I would say that would be my number one movie, just because what it signaled not only to Hollywood but to, I would say, the church as a whole, that it can be done well. Our issue for years has been we've seen a lot of Christian movies that were just kind of like they had the word Christian on it, and you immediately think, they're probably not that good. Now that's not fair. We've seen some really good production companies spring up. You've got the Kendrick brothers, who did like Courageous and War Room and Fireproof. They've had a pretty good run there of some pretty good movies. Are they Academy Award winners? No, but that's not what they don't have the budget and the things to go with that. They're doing very well. Some movies I've been like, that's Mystery Science Theater 3000-esque right there. This one was big budgeted and it showed. And I would say it was well done. Earl, I've been sermonizing here. Let me hand it over to you. What's your take on the Passion of the Christ?
I've never seen it. No, I'm kidding.
Where is Fritz when I need him? Fritz, now I need you, and you're over there in the crate. Come here, I need your hug.
I mean, so obviously people heard, oh, Mel Gibson's doing it. And even leaving all the personal stuff aside, you're like, okay, this guy is known for Mad Max. This guy's known for Lethal Weapon. This guy's known for, you know, action movies that are, you know, contemporary.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, what he managed to accomplish, or what he was part of, I can't put it all on him, but I'm like, what he was able to, you know, head and accomplish was, you know, it was very difficult watching some of those scenes where, and the part is we know that some of those were toned down uh, from what occurred. But I mean, you also have to give it to the cast. You know, they were able to convey so much emotion, so much, and the movie was filmed in Aramaic.
Correct.
Yeah. So I mean, they were on top of acting. They had to know what to say and when to act with what part of what they're saying in a different language that most of them were not able to speak before this movie. Um, it was very well done, and when you said flick, I immediately thought of the scene where Christ was being uh, tortured, and you saw the crowd and you saw the personification of Satan
Yes.
just easing through.
Just
And
kind of, just kind of going through, yeah.
going through. And you know, obviously there are some people that do not like this movie, whether it's the depth of the reality that they showed, or they disagree with this particular point. And again, like you said, we're not arguing theology here. This is about a movie that hit you in the gut, it hit you in the heartstrings, it hit you, and it pulled. And you know, with over $600 million in the box office, people went and saw this movie. Then people went and told other people, "You got to come see this movie." And then you also have to James Caviezel was was great and it was a wonder to watch him as Jesus Christ, but it was also devastating because he humanized it so very well that it was. But I have to agree with you. Passion of the Christ had to be up there. It completely blew my mind, but this is also a movie that you can't watch often. This is a
No, very few movies stick with you. Now there are scenes from some movies that'll stick with you. We quote movies to each other. Spaceballs, we'll always quote that, whether
yeah
Josh Gad makes a sequel or not, as they're talking about. This one though, this sticks with you for a different reason
yeah
because it attempts to bring the words on the page of the scripture to life. What would it look like if you were watching it on a reel and it was playing out? I would argue this is about as graphic as you can get and probably still have an R rating. And yet the whole point of the story was a man being brutalized. And that's what they spent about 45 minutes doing. And it's a lot, but if you read the story as it's written, it was a brutalization. So hats off to him.
yeah.
Hats off to the people who greenlit this thing because that was a risk and a half. But if you remember, man, you had churches renting out entire
Well, from
theaters.
what I
It was
understand, Mel Gibson backed a lot of that.
well, don't forget they're doing a second movie next year. Passion of the Christ Resurrection will be coming out, I believe, in 2025. So may have to update the list here at some point. We'll see what that does. And of course, there's always movies coming out. There's Faith Flicks. There's what's the streaming one? Pure Flicks always
The one
has
that-
movies coming out. My
But there were a
personal
lot of
go ahead.
there were a lot of movies and TV shows that could have made it onto these lists, and we had to be. I was trying to look at it, going, okay, which one still impacts me now? And one of them that almost made it on the list was never mind. I was on Saturday Night Live. Okay, it was when they sent the Terminator back to stop Jesus from being crucified, right? Because he kicks in the
First of
door.
all, I saw that movie, but I'm twisted. But maybe we'll cover that one day when it's a different political climate. Because they're supposed to be making a sequel. I need to see the sequel. Because very few movies have a flagger in it, which I work in real life, and they're a hero. And if you didn't watch the movie, you won't understand why. But a time traveling Christian movie, I'm here for this. I'll watch it. By the way, honorable mention: Kevin Sorbo, 2010. What if? When he had a high school sweetheart, he was walking with the Lord, and then he walks away to become a businessman, makes all this money, and he gets to see what his life would have looked like if he had become the minister God called him to be. It puts a smile on my face. It just because the girl from Jessie's in it. I can't think of her name from the Disney Channel series. She's the daughter in the series. He pays a guy to go out with his daughter in the movie. Just totally mortifies her. I like that kind of stuff. It's how I roll.
Well, older generations, TV shows, not technically a Christian show, but Soul Dad with Dan Aykroyd.
Okay,
He was a priest.
I remember that one.
I
It's
think it
kind of
ran for like
a Home Improvement.
Yeah, but I enjoyed it. It was wholesome, and it had some obvious Christian aspects to it. Now, this is probably one we're not supposed to talk about, but there was a show on the WB that ran for a long time,
Uh-oh.
and there are people that this is it's a gray area, but I can talk about it. It's got something gray, but Seventh Heaven was for a very long time a stand-up show that a lot of people watched because of the stories and the faith factor. Now, again, after the show ended, we know that there are a few things that came out that tarnished the show that people don't talk about. But for a long time, this show looked at real life issues from a point of a family who go to church and have faith. So Seventh Heaven, it did have an impact on a generation before obviously things happen. So
Well,
I,
and the thing
I
we talked about, and we'll kind of bring this to a close, is how much faith do you inject in your movie? Do you have it where people are quoting scriptures, where that's the main dialogue? Do you put it in the real world where maybe everyone is not speaking scripture all the time? That's always the pushback in the faith-based community that we grew up in and still live
yep,
in. Well, how much is too much, or how much is not enough? And that's interesting from this perspective in this community. It's very obvious there is a hunger for
yeah.
faith-based movie. Did you see The Blind, the one about the Robertsons? Did you see that
My
movie
side.
this year?
Okay.
I
No, I
guess
haven't
technically
seen.
it was last year. It was about the Robertsons, that had the Duck Dynasty. Did you see that movie by any chance?
Nope. I failed.
I mean, do you even try to keep up on things?
You know what? You're not. You haven't watched half. I didn't watch the movies on your list. You didn't watch the movies on my list. So don't start with me, sir.
I mean, I will start with you because I'm awesome, and that's how I
I will
roll.
make you sit there and watch the Ten Commandments 3 times in a row without a bathroom break or an intermission. You remember what those are?
Well, we are old enough to remember when they would do that. All right. Well, just to say that faith, folks of faith, do have an appetite for that. They had a movie last year which was based on the Duck Dynasty family. Um, the budget um, was I want to say it was about 30 million. I want to say was the budget. It did okay. It earned about 20 million.
Okay.
Um, so that one fell a little bit short. 20 million is still a good number, but they over budgeted that movie quite a bit,
Yeah.
so it was going to be very difficult to make. I still think there's a market for that. Fathom Events, who we go to those things sometimes. We enjoy those. They release a lot of faith based things, either documentaries, which I'm a huge fan of,
Yeah.
sometimes concerts, ministry things. So there's still an
Well,
appetite for it.
yeah. Well, the movie we were talking about earlier, Unsung Hero, I think was made for $6 million, and the box office was 21 million.
Okay.
So I mean, there's a little bit there, and that was this year. Last year we had what was it? Jesus Revolution, and
Which was extremely well received.
oh yeah, and it was a budget of 15 million, and it made 54, 55 million at the box office. And and that was last year's movie. And then we talked a little bit about Jim Caviezel. He was in a movie called Sound of Freedom that had
Yep.
a lot of real life issues going on and space issues. And if you haven't seen it, it's a lot like Passion of the Christ. It hurts to watch sometimes. There are some parts that you want to turn away from, but this is real life. This is things, and it's loosely based and adapted on a real life story of what happened. And again, I say loosely because I'm not 100% sure how the aspects. There's obviously controversy whenever things go well. That people want to nitpick things, so I can't say 100% what how authentic it is, but it is actually based on a true story. But that one was a $14.5 million budget, pulled in 250 million, and it was a story of child trafficking, but also from a point with a man of faith. And so,
And
if
that's a
you haven't
tough
seen
one.
it,
That's a
yeah,
hard one that you're talking about. Um, but you know,
yeah,
um, that's just one of those tough ones.
yeah. But it, I think that movies and TV shows, if they're going to make have a project that's based on faith, that there is a market for it, there is a hunger for it.
Mhm.
But I also believe that you need to, when you're doing something like that, I think you have to inject a certain amount of realism into it, whether it's personal walk or a loss or things that are going on in that particular time period or whatever. I think the more authentic it is to being real life, the more powerful that message is you're trying to tell.
And I think the more likely it is to interest people not of faith or people a little leery of watching certain things, you're like, oh, I can relate to that character, I can relate to the story,
Yeah.
versus say, things we saw growing up. Remember the cross and the switchblade? Not just a
I
book,
have the
folks.
book.
Eric Estrada was in that movie
I have
of
not
Chip's
read
fame.
the book. I own 2 copies of the book. I've not read the book. It's only like 100 and something pages long, but I saw the movie back in the day.
Okay, there's hope. There's hope for you. There's no hope for you. Okay, we're gonna
Eric
go ahead and close
Estrada
this
is my
thing
hope.
down. There you go. Oh Lord. All right. Well, with that, we are going to close this thing down while we still have some shred of believability left. You know what we're going to say. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. If you would do us a favor before you leave today, click that like button. That really does help us with the YouTube algorithm. If you've not done so, click subscribe. Come back for the zaniness that is what we do here on Midnight Magic Musings, and share this thing out on your social media platform of choice. If you enjoy what we did, share it with your friends. If you don't like what we did, you know what? Irritate your friends. Share it. We don't care. We'll take anybody. We'll take everybody. But on behalf of the Earl of Florida, I'm simply your humble host, still the Lord Cephas. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again next time. Take care, everybody.
We love you.